Welcome back to the Robaer Report. Once again, it is Monday night, 8:30 p.m. Was our start time for tonight. We're here with a very special guest. Uh, First of all, I want to thank the Black USA News family, all of our hosts. I want to give a special shout out to Donnie and Chap for manning this thing. Taking control of the helm of this ship. I really appreciate you all for bringing us the news and bringing us events from a myriad of different hosts with regard to Black USA News. My name is Robaer Washington. I am your host of Black USA News. Today, we have a very special guest who has been on at least one program on Black USA News. May have been multiple, but I know it has been one. Want to introduce Brother Akil. Brother Akil will tell you more about him, but I've talked with him a few times. I actually saw him on one of Brother Donnie's shows, and I really enjoyed the conversation he was having regarding mathematics, history, and just his perspective on the importance of people learning mathematics. Brother Akil, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, brother. Doing good. How are you?
I'm doing all right, man. We in his thing. We in here. Present a guest to the Black USA News platform. Again, this is the Robaer Report, where our mission is to tout individuals and their contribution to society and society's development. All right. So, as I said, me and our brother Akil, we met over by way of the phone a few weeks ago and playing a little phone tag. Finally, we got our schedules organized. And he's here today to talk to us about all this math. So, Brother Akil, so tell us about your background, where you're currently teaching, if you would like to, your degree standing, and courses you teach. And I believe you're at the University of Cheney. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's
Okay.
correct.
Tell us about those things right there. You know, what you teach, degree standing, courses, and all that. We want to get a background on you first.
Okay, so a little bit of biographical information. I was born in New York, but my family moved to Baltimore when I was young. So I spent my formative years growing up in Baltimore, Maryland. After graduating from Morgan State, I relocated to Philadelphia. So I've been in Philadelphia ever since. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, that is, not Philadelphia, Mississippi. But I've been in Philly for a while. I've been a high school math teacher since '05. And I transitioned from being a traditional high school math teacher to an adjunct professor and also an entrepreneur, developing my company, All This Math. And those are the two main things, at least professionally, that I'm doing besides raising my children and just, trying to be a better Black man every day, you know. And the college that I teach at currently is Cheney University. I started teaching at Cheney back in 2019. So this is about to be the end of my third full year at Cheney. I started out teaching in the summer bridge program in the summer of 2019. And they were kind of just looking for a math teacher. And I was available and I found out about it. So I talked to a good brother named Jelani Ghana, who was in charge of the program that summer. And he put me in position, put me on. And then it just so happened that I was in the right place at the right time, because in that fall semester of 2019, they also had a professor in the Department of Natural and Applied Sciences where the math courses are held. He retired. So they needed someone to come in and teach Math 105 that semester. And Math 105 is really a math methods course. It's part one of a two-part math methods course for future educators that want to teach between the grades of K through 8. So I'm basically teaching the new math that a lot of parents are made uncomfortable by. I'm teaching, a lot of, the elementary school math and the middle school math. And, I'm trying to really make sure that these future teachers have a solid foundation and understanding of mathematics in a procedural way and also in a conceptual way. But unfortunately, I guess I shouldn't say unfortunately, but it's a lot of them have their own deficiencies in mathematics that they bring with them. They want to be teachers, but they know that they're going to have to teach math. So they have to get over their issues and challenges and fears and anxieties with mathematics. So I'm trying to help them get over that as well at the same time. So, we're doing a lot. We're doing a lot over at Cheney. And that's part one of the course. But then part two is Math 106. So typically what happens is Math 105 is offered in the fall, and then Math 106, same group of students, is offered in the spring. So right now,
there's a cohort group?
Sort of. Not exactly. Anybody can take the class whenever they need it. But typically the students, advance together, every year. So every year I pretty much have had the same group of students in the fall into the spring, unless, life happens and somebody isn't able to come back for the spring semester, or I think I might have had a situation where somebody only needed Math 105 for some reason, maybe back in 2019. But yeah. So that's really what I'm doing at Cheney. And actually Cheney, in my office at Cheney, is where I've recorded a lot of the videos for my YouTube channel, a lot of the mathematics instructional videos for my YouTube channel, which to help, not only students with understanding math better by, watching YouTube and getting direction in that way, but also for parents. So that's why I appreciate being able to come onto your platform and talk about what I'm doing as a way to market what I'm doing to the community. Because I really, overall, I want Black people to feel comfortable with mathematics. And that's the work that I do.
Brother Akil. Brother Akil. Brother Akil, your sound went out. If you can hear me. Hey, Brother Akil, if you hear me, your sound went out. Let me see. Yeah, let me see. I don't hear you. You hear me? Can you hear me, Brother Akil? Because we are live and the sound went out. Hey, could you hear me, man? Sorry about that. Guests, viewers, we're back. up. It is raining over here on the East Coast in DC, Maryland, Virginia area. I didn't know it was raining also in Philly. So, hello, you
Okay.
hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
We're back. Yep, we're back. We're back. We're back. Okay, I hear you. All
All right.
right. So sorry about that, guest. Gonna be a little lag time on this, but we're back. Um, so you were at the point where you were when I last heard you speak about the people who are in the cohort group for the 10 math 105, I believe, and math 106. I believe that's the term you use. I know I heard 105, 106.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, we can start there from how they transition from 105 to 106.
Yeah, well, so those are the two main courses that I teach on campus, just those two courses. And that's when I originally started back in 2019. That's what I was brought on to teach, those two courses, math for elementary school educators, or, you can think of it as a math methods course for, education majors, you know what I mean? But yeah, so that's kind of the background, teaching doing that at Cheney, and also, developing content and creating content for my YouTube channel. In addition to the private math tutoring that myself and my son do. Me and my son are the two tutors in my company. And, we do math tutoring. It's all virtual. So we have, most of our students are probably in Philadelphia, in the Philly area. But then we have some other, students throughout the country at different places. So, but I'm really, very encouraged and motivated to promote this YouTube channel because, online content is really, where everything is going toward nowadays anyway. And it's also a way to kind of help train our children to be more autodidactic and get them prepared for college, where, in college, there's not as much teaching taking place on the college level as there is on the high school or the middle school and elementary school level. You're kind of you get a certain level of support, but a lot of the learning has to be done on one's own. So I'm providing a resource where if you need support in algebra and geometry and trigonometry, pre-calculus, or even elementary mathematics, pre-algebra, that you can go to and you can get not a live lesson, but a recorded lesson at any given moment, as long as you have Wi-Fi and you can access YouTube. So, because I kind of just, was really, I was thinking about why I started the question of why I started all this math, and then also, why I developed all this math, why I invested so much in it. And I really I got tired of, complaining about what white people weren't doing, for us in the schools that they control. So I said that, I started to adopt this approach where I realized that, nobody's coming to save us. And if our children are going to learn mathematics, then we have to teach our children mathematics. So this is my contribution. This is a way for us to do for self in real time. And if you want to learn mathematics, you can come to my YouTube channel, and it doesn't mean that you necessarily are not learning it in school. I know a lot of schools and a lot of classrooms, there's no learning taking place in math classrooms. That's not every classroom and not every school, but in a lot of schools and in a lot of classrooms, there is not learning taking place. And I think a lot of us in the education community are not being honest about that for a lot of different reasons. But, I can be honest about it as a former 16 plus year veteran high school math teacher. I can speak about how my own classrooms were. There was a lot of times everybody wasn't learning math. Everybody wasn't learning geometry in my class, even though I was teaching geometry. Everybody in the room wasn't learning algebra. Wasn't learning algebra 2. Wasn't learning statistics for a myriad of reasons. But I think that some of those people, if they had the motivation and they had a tool or online resource, like we have, on an online resource where they could, teach themselves or get support, because they might not learn the best in a classroom setting.
Okay.
They might, to just be in a quiet space at home or something, or by themselves, somewhere else where they kind of are free of distraction.
Right.
Not afraid of distraction. They might just need that, just like with a lot of things that people learn on YouTube, So I wanted to provide that, and that's what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
So I'm providing that, and I would like for it to become a household name. I would like for people in our community to just think like, okay, yeah, I can go here and I can learn this. Kind of like, because I realized that Khan Academy is a household name in educational circles,
That's
but
right.
Khan Academy, has a lot of shortcomings. It's not culturally relevant for people of African descent. Also, a lot of times, a lot of the video content that I've seen on Khan Academy, it kind of speaks to a person like myself that already has a strong math background, but needs to brush up on some topics. It doesn't speak, a lot of the video content that I've seen, it doesn't really speak to the student that really is just learning for the first time, To the brother, William Horniblu, asking about what is autodidactic, meaning when a person teaches themselves. That's what I mean by being autodidactic, able to teach oneself, which is what YouTube is used for a lot. People can go on YouTube and almost find anything. I've heard the nickname YouTube University. People go on YouTube, find out how to, replace parts on their car. If they find out that, it's going to cost $1,500 to replace a AC compressor in their car, they're like, well, I don't got $1,500. So let me go look up some videos on YouTube and see if some videos showing how to do it. And if
That's funny. It's funny you say that. I got a buddy who called me yesterday. He bought a house that he wants to flip, and so he said, "Hey man, look, I want to see if you'll come and help me do some flooring." He said, "Man, hey, I'm gonna just watch some YouTube videos, man," because he was gonna pay for it, but I guess the price got out of hand. So he was like, "I'll pay you to come and help me," and I was like, I've done flooring once in my life. Now I'm not that technical with it, but I can figure it out. He said, go to YouTube, so we'll both be learning, and I'll be getting paid in the process. So yeah, you're right though. Thank you so much, Mr. Honolulu. Mr. Honolulu takes care of he takes care of all the operations, or if not all, a great majority of the operations of the network. So I want to thank him for coming and supporting the show. He has an awesome show has an awesome morning show. And Mr. Honolulu, if you're here, log into the stream, man. I would love to have you on so that you can ask your question directly to our guest of honor today, if you're still here. So yeah, back to the guest and what you were saying, and I appreciate you giving that detailed explanation about your background, what you're teaching at the university, where you're teaching. Shout out to Cheney University for giving this young man a platform or a classroom to be able to share his gift with their students, who they're going to interject into the public school, private school, homeschooling arena, and they will always be able to say, "Hey, I was able to get a good bearing on my math foundation because of the technical skill that Mr. Akil or Brother Akil." I don't know. He doesn't have a PhD right now, but they say, speak it into existence. If that's something he wants, if he doesn't want that, we won't speak it into existence. And so, I had another question. What age groups do you typically work with, or do you typically prefer to teach when you're teaching the levels of mathematics that you are comfortable with?
It's a good question. Let me think on that for a second. I've taught all age groups, like through all this math and the tutoring that we do. I've tutored as young as 5 years old, I believe, and as old as a person in their 50s, an adult learner, someone going back to college to get either their first college degree or get another college degree. So I've kind of tutored the full gamut and the full range of ages. Oh, there go my daughter.
Okay. Yeah, I put the website in the background.
Yeah, that was the side of when she was a little younger. She's also she co-stars, or I should say she stars in some of the videos on the channel, and I co-star for her. I'm just there doing teaching the math lesson, but she's really the star of the video. Shout out to her.
Okay.
So yeah, but to your question, what do I prefer? That's hard to say. I don't really know that I have a preference. I like to vary. I like to have various. I like to approach different types of math at different times. Whether it's algebra 1, geometry. I really don't like to stick with one sub genre of math all the time. I like to have some diversity in terms of what type I'm teaching or tutoring. It keeps it interesting. And it's also cool because what it does is by exploring the diversity of math and being able to see the diversity, it helps me to see the connection and kind of like the cultural unity, like shake on to joke. And I guess this would be like something, a hystematics. The late scholar Joke wrote, one of his books was The Cultural Unity of Black Africa. So where he recognized that, there are differences among different people on the continent of Africa, but there's much more similarity than difference. And their cultural connections, their, threads that are which make us inextricably linked as a people. Math is a similar way, like whether it's algebra 1 or 2, geometry, trigonometry, they all kind of build on each other. They're interconnected to each other in different ways. Even the elementary math, that really, I would argue, a lot of people have challenges with mathematics on the high school level and the college level, not so much because of that more advanced content and the rules, theories, and the properties and the advanced content, but it's the foundation.
Yeah.
A lot of people have very weak foundations in math. And a lot of people in elementary school, they may have a general understanding of how to do arithmetic, but they don't really learn math.
Right.
They don't understand math. They don't really understand numbers. And I say that as a person that has firsthand experience. So, I'm not that in a condescending manner. I'm saying that as a person that has experienced that myself. One of the benefits of teaching this course or these courses at Cheney is that I'm teaching the elementary school math that these teachers are going to have to in turn go on to teach. And what I've realized having to teach this is I realized my own blind spot to my own education and how, as a child, like I said, I grew up in Baltimore. I went to Roland Park Elementary School.
Big up Roland Park. Big up Roland Park. That's what my son. I apologize. So I jump in here. You rep my son's elementary middle school. I gotta shout it out. So okay.
I was there from 88 to 93 when I graduated the 8th grade.
Nope, they were there much later than that.
and then went to Poly after that.
Big up Poly.
Right. I remember I saw you when I was on Donnie Glover's show. You were in the audience.
Oh, okay. I hang around y'all. Yeah.
But yeah, I've been able to recognize a lot of my own personal blind spots and also see that I was very proficient at procedures, but I wasn't proficient in concepts or conceptual understanding. And what happens is a lot of times when we don't have that conceptual understanding at an early age, it leads to a lot of problems because we end up having to just memorize steps, but not know you do the steps or why the steps even make sense. And then, you end up in an algebra class years later, and with the algebra, it's like expectation is that, okay, you already know how to add fractions together, or you already know how to add a whole number to a negative fraction. and you already know how to find the common denominator, but you might have never really fully learned that years ago.
Like why you do it.
Yeah, you don't know why you do it. You really don't understand what a fraction really is or what's
Absolutely. You know what to do with it.
Track fractions, you know?
Yeah. And so I really appreciate the fact that you are taking the opportunity to empower people, and teaching them that math is more than just the procedures, step 1, step 2, step 3, and step 4. How do you really help people help the students like trying to change their mindset, because a lot of them along their entire academic journey, and if you mentioned this already, just consider this free promo so that people who didn't hear it like me, they come back and they know what you're talking about. But like, if I've always just known this, follow directions, don't think about math, don't question it, just follow directions. How, if I'm a parent and want to bring to my kid to all his math and use the YouTube channel, how do I even start working on that mindset?
So that's a great question. Now on the YouTube channel, you know, what I do is I provide a lot of ad libs and a lot of try to emphasize why, like why it's happening, why does this make sense, how do we need to do this, even why is this called what it is, like the name of it, like the name of the topic, like why is it called the quadratic formula, why is it called the completing the square method,
Right.
equation, like, because that's something that like a lot of times doesn't get discussed. It's like this is how you do it, and this is what it's called, and you just got to memorize all that. But I think one of the things that me and Robaer was talking about the other day was I try to emphasize every math problem is a story.
Yes.
Every problem is a story. And I think that as a math teacher, one of the things I've gotten better at over the years, I was not very good at this early on in my career. I didn't even know that this was necessary early in my career, was that, you know, you really got to be a storyteller. You know, even if you're not dealing with a word problem, you got to be a storyteller. You got to tell the story of this problem. Like, what do you start out with? What are you doing with the numbers, and what comes next?
Right.
Like, doing after that, what are we trying to do? What's our goal? You know, we're trying to solve an equation. Okay, how are we going to do it? And then we have options. That's another thing too. Like, so if it's a story where we could have went this way,
right? But you chose,
but we went the other way, and that was cool, because you know a lot, and that's what I try to emphasize also a lot, that it's kind of like this in a lot of mathematics instruction is like this kind of theme of like monotheism, right?
Yes.
Where it's like there's only one way to do this problem, and students will get upset with you because if they had a teacher in 6th grade that taught them this one way, and then they come to your class in the 7th grade and you showing them a different way, that's like words to them. It's like, no, Miss So-and-so told us this way. I'm like, that's cool, right? I appreciate that, but I want you to have more options,
right?
Less options. I want you to have more options. It really empowers you, because then you can choose which method you want to use,
right?
And then based on how some problems look, like this problem, the way it's set up, it might make more sense for you to use the method you learned last year. But now, let's show this other method. Now you realize, oh, okay, so if the problem looks like this, then it actually makes more sense for me to show the method that you're showing us, Mr. Parker. So now I'm being more efficient. I'm able to be more efficient with my time, and with my approach to these problems. So yeah, I'm trying to promote, like, I guess a polytheistic approach.
Absolutely.
How we do math problems.
And I think it is one of the things that you have kind of hit upon in really great detail. It seems like it's the anchor of is this idea is that math is something that is a tool that you use, and not a tool that you use. What do you call them? Well, I guess they're still tools, the ones that artists use, an instrument. Math is an instrument to solve problems. And I think sometimes what ends up happening is that we lose that in our development of math. This rote instruction, the Dewey system of, yes, I tabula rasa, you know nothing, you poor ignorant mush you. And I am the genius instructor ahead of all the knowledge that you will ever have. because it's not like you have the internet, because that's not like you talk to anybody else, or you'll have another teacher other than me. And so and I know that a lot of times, some of the time, the parents get caught up in it as well. Why? Because we had the same math experience.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when my kids were going to Roland Park, and one of them they did you probably know it, Singapore math. Does that sound like a thing?
I'm a little familiar with it.
Okay, I eighth grade, I was like, bruh, I got nothing for you. Nothing for you. There's nothing that I can do. No, it might even do it. It might even been seventh, because it was like this way of doing algebra that had nothing to do with moving anything on an equation. It was sticks and slashes. I didn't understand what was going on, and so I embarrassed as it was, kind of, it was a little proud but embarrassed. Like, I had nothing to offer him. Luckily, he was in one of those ingenuity program where they have all that additional support. But if we hadn't been in that, I'm done. I wouldn't even know how to help him, and he was gifted. So, like, what kind of advice could you give to a parent so that I can be prepared to help my kid wherever they are on the continuum? I think sometimes it goes the opposite way, where I want you to be more gifted than you actually are. And so how do we as parents start to try to calibrate some of that?
So one of the things I'm also do is trying to help parents to get over their own, fears and anxiety about mathematics, because that anxiety that you had as a parent, when you were in sixth grade, that anxiety you felt in class, it doesn't just go away. It's like a trauma. It's
right.
Like you had an experience, like it never goes away. And even if a person goes through therapy, they learn how to manage it, but it doesn't really go away, so to speak.
Right. You learn how to cope with it.
Yeah, you'd have to have like a lobotomy or something. You can learn, because we can do is gain tools to help you process it in a healthy way and help to manage your behavior, so that you're not reacting to it at all times and being unhealthy and passing on the pain to other people. So I try to encourage parents to. That's why I say also, like, I want the channel really to be for them as well. Because I want parents to really take ownership of the education of their children. And I want to position that the parents hold in terms of their child's education. I want parents to become the primary educators once again.
Right.
Instead of being the secondary educator.
Where wait, come on. Are we going to keep did you say secondary educator?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Let's try tertiary on a good day. Because I know this ain't my show, but we keep it mostly real. 85%. We're not gonna give you 100% because there's 15% you don't need to know. But the reality is that not only do they rely on teachers, sometimes they rely on older siblings. Well, didn't you just take this class last year? I got a D. Okay, but you can help your brother. You know what? At least the new or old material. Like they are falling further, but some of it because they just got stuff to do.
I'm encouraging that older brothers, older sisters, older cousins, grandparents, uncles. I want the community to really be responsible for mathematics education, and even in the other subjects as well. But my focus is specifically mathematics. I want for schools that we don't control, public schools and charter schools, to become places of practice, similar to sports. You have a child that is a star athlete. And they were a star athlete in Little League or in Pop Warner football or AAU basketball, and then high school level, and they got recruited by their basketball coach, their football coach, or their baseball coach, or whatever. They're not necessarily going to that school to learn how to play that sport. They're going to that school to practice their craft of what they already know how to do.
Right.
Recruited potentially by some college sports coaches.
Right.
So that's how my vision, my long-term vision for education is at. But in order for that to happen, the community, the parents, the aunts, the uncles, the grandparents, the old heads, the big sisters and the big brothers and the cousins or whoever, they have to have the ability to say, okay, well, I can sit down with you and I can show you how to do the Singapore math, or I can show you how to solve these quadratic equations. But to your original question, like I want for parents to start thinking about that as the end goal, and kind of, decide that if it's some math that they never learned when they were in school,
Mm-hmm.
I want to learn it now, or
Mm-hmm.
after they did learn when they were in school, but they forgot about it 30 years ago, and if
Right.
you don't, you lose it. I mean, even myself as a teacher, if I taught a certain course in 5 years or 4 years, and somebody asked me to tutor them in that subject, I'm like, yeah, okay, bring the problems over. Let me take a look at it. I still might not just off the top of my head know it. I got to do my own research, and I got to like jog my memory. Or if it's on my roster, I got to teach that class. I'm like, okay, cool, I could teach it, but I'm gonna need to look over these, my notes
Right.
5 years ago or from the last school I taught at, or go online and look at some videos. It's really, I want parents to really embrace that, and also kind of as a way to really take ownership and develop that, as my father talked about dissertation, cultural capital. I think puts more cultural.
Wait, I apologize. I didn't catch your father's dissertation situation. Do we have a link to that in something?
I can reach out to him and have him
Okay.
contact the station, because it's very relevant. His name is Dr. Brian Morrison. He's a teacher in DC. Well,
Big up, Doctor. Wait, what school? What school in DC? What school?
he's at Ballou. He's at Ballou High School.
Oh, okay, okay. So I grew up down the street when I spent the first 14 years of my life in Washington D.C. So
Okay.
I feel connected.
Okay. But he did he did most of his work in the Baltimore area.
Okay.
Taught for about 15 plus years at Randallstown High School.
Okay.
He was there for a while, teaching social studies, yeah, and his dissertation, he got his PhD in Oregon, where I read it. And it was about the history of, I don't remember the exact title of his
right. No, I don't need the title.
I'll definitely get that for you. But it's
I appreciate that.
History of education in Baltimore City. It was a localized history doing. And one of the things he talked a lot about was the idea of cultural capital, and how over time cultural capital has been kind of removed from education. Not that people don't value education, but I think today, like, living in this, like, this kind of really very ultra capitalistic society we're in, education is really just is not really education, but it's really credits and degrees that can be translated into jobs that earn money, as opposed to being a well-educated human being.
Because we have missed as a society, as a system, we are all about the W. However we measure the W, if it's how many dollars you have, how many degrees you have, it's how do you just get the W? And we've gotten so bent on just winning and accumulating stuff, relationships don't matter. That's why we don't take any time to get to know anybody. It's commoditized. It is, I don't need a relationship if I got cash. I don't need a relationship if I got power. And so we spend all this time trying to amass all of these things to help us avoid the necessity of having relationships, because some humans are trash. And it just kind of comes back down to that, and recognizing, again, I appreciate the fact that even in the way you're describing your father's work, that you recognize that there is a need to engage people in a culturally competent, and not the buzzword culturally competent that, everybody who has a certificate in DEI right now is like, oh, I can tell you. No, I'm talking about like cultural competence from the experience of the culture.
Right.
I appreciate that the way that you all are trying to meld the subjects into that context, where math isn't this thing you do at school because you got to do 4 of them before you graduate, or 5 maybe, but it is a tool for problem solving through life.
Right.
Do you really help them understand how math fits into like general, like regular person decision making or anything like that?
I try every I get, because another thing from the classroom teacher, you always get that question, like, when am I going to use this stuff? And early in my career, I didn't really have good answers for that question, or for that question. But what would happen, and I would get frustrated. My ego would kick in, and I would feel like I was defensive and feel like, okay, this kid's just trying to be a smart ass. Like,
Right.
He's frustrated with the lesson. He don't want to do work. But then over time, I realized that's really one of the most important questions that a student can ever ask is, when am I going to use this? And it's really incumbent upon the teacher to be armed and be ready to answer that question, and also understand that answer is going to be different for different students, and it's going to be different.
Say that again. Say that again. Say something again, because there's an educator and a parent out there that needs to be able to hear you say those words one more time.
So you have to be able to answer that question. When am I going to use this stuff?
Right.
There are going to be different answers for different students, and
that's it.
There will be different answers for the same student depending upon the context of the situation. Because sometimes a lot of times we kind of get caught up in, again, the capitalistic pursuits. Kind of say, well, the gatekeepers, people that control the jobs and control the economic system, they say that you got to jump through these hoops, so you got to know math so you can get the high paying jobs.
Yep.
And that's true, but that's kind of cheapens it. Right?
Yes.
A larger benefit, and this is why I always push on when I see these memes that float around the internet, when people are showing their frustration years later, and they think, and it's kind of funny when they're saying like, oh well, another day went by, I didn't use a squared plus b squared equals c squared, and I didn't use the quadratic formula. And I understand where they're coming from. I get that, but what they're failing to realize is it's not about the formula. It's not about solving a specific problem. It's about your brain being trained to think in that way.
Yep.
And that is a transferable skill that you can apply in any situation, right? Knowing how to solve problems, knowing how to think critically, being able to do math and be successful at higher level mathematics or even intermediate level mathematics, it trains you, even sometimes unbeknownst to you, to think in a critical way, where you're able to look at information, internalize the information, organize the information.
There you go. That's the one I was waiting for. I was waiting for you to say organize, because that is the game changer right there.
You got to be able to organize your information, organize your tools, organize your ingredients or whatever you're going to use, and then use a formula, right? Whether you realize it's a formula or not, use a formula to come up with a solution to a problem. And a lot of times we don't know how to solve problems. So if you're a person that doesn't really know how to solve problems, you have no option except to just complain, and you're limited to like bitching and moaning. Like all you can do is bitch and moan.
You don't have any other tools.
Yeah, because you don't have the tools. You don't know how to problem solve.
I'm sorry. You tricked me. You're not slick. You're not slick, Robaer. Because I'm sitting here, I'm about to burn these dang on cookies. I'm gonna go ahead and finish baking, y'all. You got me all excited here talking about education. You're not slick, dude. You're not slick. I'm gonna catch you though.
No, I want to tell you thank you so much. As you can see, I was experiencing something that was not conducive for this stream, and you all kept the conversation. And actually, Mr. Honolulu, you were asking questions that me and Mr. Akil had written up already. So I don't know. Hey, look, you sent me an email. I hope you ain't watching my email. You big brother
right? No, so I used to be one of the admins in a high school, and I do dissertation consulting and editing for people in education programs at Morgan.
Okay. Yeah, my father, his advisor was the late Rosalind Turborg Penn.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Good biz. All right, gentlemen, let me go ahead and again, I'm not trying to burn these cookies, y'all. Leave me alone.
Thanks.
I'll catch you with you. All right.
Nice talking to you.
Mr. Akil, I want to say thank you, man, for working with me, because I had some real issues going on over here with regard to my camera, and then the whole system just shut down. So we can talk some more. Well, we will talk some more on this stream, but we'll have to do another stream as well, and we'll have it up to date. It has not been good for business, but we're back at it. Let me ask you this: did you all speak about histomatics?
Not really.
Okay.
I think we touched on it, but not explicitly.
Okay.
Like, but histomatics is. I think I mentioned this. I don't know if we were having technical difficulties, but like at the beginning of the program, histomatics is an example of it. I should say is recording a video where I'm doing some mathematics instruction, and just me wearing this sweatshirt, representing Mission College. Of course, Mission College is a fictional college based on different historically Black colleges. And it's the fictional college from Spike Lee's movie School Days, from the 19th. So, but just having a person think about, what a HBCU is, the HBCU experience, and, some of the people that HBCUs have produced while we're thinking about mathematics,
Okay.
It's people like the late Dr. Abdul Alim Shabazz, who was a Lincoln University graduate and was a PhD in mathematics. Also taught at Clark Atlanta University. I believe he was the department chair there at one point. He was the department chair at Lincoln at one point. And he is, I think, historically speaking, he's responsible for producing more Black PhDs in math than any other single educator in society. And he made transition maybe about 10 years ago, if that long ago. He also taught at either Southern University or Grambling University as well. And I'm actually going to be doing a brief presentation on him on a panel about awakening the mathematical genius of African children next month. It'll be broadcast on Facebook with some other scholars and some other people of African descent having that conversation. But yeah, so what it does is, I might have a Malcolm X hoodie on, or a Kwame Toure t-shirt, or so you're gonna get both, and again I'm like I said earlier, I'm tired of, or I got tired of kind of thinking about or complaining about what white folks are not doing for us. And I decided to try to be more intentional and develop something tangible where we can really do for self, and we don't got to wait for nobody else. And that's really what it is. That's really what this is. Space for people to come to really learn math if they're not learning it in school, in the classroom, and also to support and supplement what they are learning in school. Because a lot of times the teacher might not be a bad teacher. It might just be an issue of, like, the student just needs more practice. The student just needs reinforcement, and they can't get enough. They're not getting enough reinforcement of the skills, because there's one teacher, there's 25, 30 students in the class at any given moment. That's right. It might be on a block schedule situation where they only go to math class every other day, even if it's a 90, but they only going every other day. So they don't get math every single day. So they might need that support on the days in between. And then you out of luck if, like, let's say, in a particular week, let's say you're in an A week or a B week, whatever it might be, and you got your math class on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, but then you came to school Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and Thursday, but then you don't come to school on Friday. So then you go back, and you don't have math the next week until Tuesday. Yeah. So here it is, you was in math class on Wednesday, and then you don't sit in the classroom where you're learning or practicing math until the next Tuesday.
It's about 6-7 days. That's 7 days. Yeah.
All that time is going by, and there's we can talk about how a lot of schools decide to go into a block schedule. Maybe not every school, but there's some schools out there, they go into a block schedule to minimize the amount of time that the students are in the hallway, because they feel that students are it's a management issue. It's about containment. You know, we want them in classrooms for more time. They can't be in the hallways, you know, because the fundamental belief is that a lot of people have, the fundamental belief that a lot of people have is that Black people are savages and Black children are savages. You know, it's the same type of racist ideology that, you know, was embedded in the groundings and the foundation of Western society and of this country. And a lot of our own people have internalized it and believe it. And it makes its way to a lot of educational policies. So again, if you're missing class, because you're on a block schedule, even if you're not on a block schedule, you just miss a day in class. You know, in some schools, you know, missing that one day would be critical.
Yeah, that's right. Especially if a test coming up, especially if it's not a test, a major exam when you only have four exams throughout the school year or school semester. If you're in if you're in a high school or middle school, you may only have 4 major tests that calendar year. So, you know, and speaking of that, right? So a person, a child, a student, we call them students, they're having trouble in school, all right, gaining access to adequate education regard to math, all right. You and I spoke about this topic of number sense. And as a sociological term, I'll use the word, a social science term, I'll use agency. A person taking their own agency and coming up with a way to better their own situation. So one of the things that we talked that you and I discussed was how to learn mathematics in the household, how to learn mathematics while you're driving in the vehicle. So how does that look in the household? Measurements. You know, these are questions that I'm asking. If you're in the kitchen, in regard to measurements, when you're in the car, you're looking at the military time versus the standard time that we're familiar with, or Celsius versus Fahrenheit. Can you speak to that on how a parent, can work with their child so that they can develop a sense of understanding math outside of just being stuck in the classroom?
Yeah. So, and what that does is it also removes the stigma around mathematics, and it removes the feeling of for parents of feeling that the feelings of inadequacy that some parents may honestly feel. They may not talk about it, they may not admit it, but you know, because you know we're human beings, you know, and we have ego. You know, I mean, even right. I got an ego, you know, so I may not want to admit that I'm weak at something or I'm not as strong at something, you know. Right. So, but when you take mathematics and make it more practical and more pragmatic, and you know, when you're riding in the car with your child and you're like, okay, listen, I set the clock to military time, the digital clock on the dashboard to military time on purpose, but I want you to tell me what the time is in the normal way or the standard way that we typically tell time. And then once you tell them like, okay, just take the military time, as long as you're in the PM, AM versus PM. So that's another conversation. They may or may not already know what the difference between AM and PM is, but let's say they do know the difference between AM and PM. And you say, okay, we'll just subtract 12. You know, you take the military, you know, and subtract 12. And rest in peace to my uncle Walter, who taught me military time when I was a young child. Okay. I never thought it was real fascinating. I said, wow, like people, so it's more than one way to tell time. Wow. You know, I remember that being as a young boy. But yeah, so you know, this is where a parent can do with their own child. And then what it does is it's another example of your child getting their reps in, you know, kind of like how, like with sports, you know, you got to get your reps in, you got to practice, you got to do a certain skill over and over again. And another reason that a lot of people are weak at mathematics is because they don't get their reps in. You know, they wait until they only do math when they're in school. You know, only do math when they're in school. And then when they're in school, they're kind of trying to avoid it. So they're not really doing it a lot of the time. If it's not a teacher standing right over top of them, they're not doing it. Or if the teacher's not going to collect the assignment and they find out in advance, oh, you're not collecting, I'm not doing it. They're not doing it. So you're not getting that. They can get reps in, quote unquote, reps in the car, converting standard time to military time or military time to standard time. Like you mentioned, doing the temperature conversion. A lot of vehicles, you can display your temperature, the outside temperature, in Celsius as opposed to Fahrenheit. It's a quick little formula that you might not learn till you get to a chemistry class in 10th grade, or maybe an 8th grade physical science class, maybe. But it's a quick little formula. It's not even that deep, you know. And you can have your child do that every single day. And these are things I do with my own daughter, my 10-year-old daughter, Asada, you know, that you'll see in a lot of the videos on the YouTube channel. The formula to convert from Celsius to Fahrenheit is really the Celsius temperature times 1.8, then plus 32. So what I did, I made it even simpler because it's all approximate anyway. I mean, I'm not a meteorologist. I don't know what the real temperature is outside anyway, but we can get close to it, right? So I just say instead of doing 1.8, let's round it up to 2. Let's round 1.8 up to 2, the whole number 2. So really all you're doing is you're taking the Celsius temperature, you double it or multiply by 2. And that's important also because that's another conversation. That's a mathematical conversation. Doubling something is the same as multiplying something by 2. And you'd be surprised how many young people don't know that. You'd be surprised how many adults don't know that. And that's another challenge for us as teachers, how much we take for granted. And we don't, because we make these assumptions that people know things that they don't really know. And then it's kind of like we're in a difficult spot because it's like, well, I don't want you to feel like I don't want you to feel like I'm trying to play you, or I'm trying to make you seem like you might be dumb, but I don't know what you know. So, but a lot of people don't know that when you double something, that's the same thing as multiplying by 2. So you just take the Celsius temperature, multiply by 2 or double it, and then take that number, add it to 32. So every time my daughter gets in the car, we turn the car on, I look at the display, I'm like, Asada, it's 12 degrees Celsius. Tell me what that is in Fahrenheit. And it's like a ritual. We've institutionalized it. And we've ritualized just like dressing up for Easter, going on Easter egg hunts.
Right,
you know,
right.
Christmas. We've institutionalized and ritualized doing this math when we get into the car. And this is something that all of us can do. And then over time, if your child, every time your child gets in the car, they're doing that type of math, they're doing those calculations, it's going to get easy. It might be real hard at first. It might be hard for you as a parent. But if you do them over and over again, it's going to start to get easy. And then it's like, oh, then you're going to notice, oh, your child knows how to double any number. And then your child add 32 to any number. And then naturally they're figuring out shortcuts and different methods. Like I was talking about with Mr. Horniblu earlier, how there are different methods. We're not doing, we shouldn't be doing monotheistic mathematics. We should be doing polytheistic mathematics, where we have multiple methods that will still get us to the same answer. It will still get us to the same answer, right? So these are all the things that, you know, your child's going to be doing as you're practicing, and you're doing it right in the car, not in the classroom, low stress environment. There's no test. There's no state test that affects, like, if your school is going to get state funding next year. And if enough people don't get a certain score, the school might get shut down. It's none of that, right? And you do this at a young age, so they don't got to wait till the 10th grade chemistry class, because they've been doing it since they was 6 or 7 years old, and they was doing it like real time, and it's useful because, like, I've grown up, like many of us, like using Fahrenheit temperature. Like Fahrenheit temperature is just the temperature. We just know that as that's what the temperature is. We don't really know that there's no difference between Fahrenheit or Celsius, and let alone Kelvin. The Kelvin scale, that's another scale.
Oh, that's a whole other scale. That's right.
You know, but it's like, you know, if somebody told me like, yo, it's 12 degrees Celsius outside, I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what that means, because I don't know what that feel like, because I don't conceptualize that. But I can conceptualize, if you convert that to Fahrenheit for me, let's do 12 times 2, that gives me 24. Let's do 24 plus 32, that's going to be 56 degrees. I know what 56 degrees feels like.
Yeah,
I know that because I'm conditioned and socialized to understand what 56 degrees feels like. So now, and then you're showing your child this. It's like they're using math as a tool. Now, of course, you know, somebody might argue, well, they already in the car anyway. You're already out the house. Everybody already dressed. So what they need to know the temperature now for anyway? They already know the temperature. That's true, but still, it's like it's still
It's teaching. I'm not cutting you off to cut you off. I'm cutting you off to make a point that it teaches it teaches a certain level of critical thinking.
Mm-hmm.
All right, because when so I used to substitute teach back in the day, and we've definitely gone over the hour, but it's okay. We're talking. There was some issues on my side regarding to technology, but I used to substitute teach, and I had a couple classrooms too as a classroom teacher throughout my younger years after I graduated from Howard. And one of the things I saw with regard to young people, let's say sixth grade on down, and if we broke it up by race, a lot of times hear the black children say, my little brother said this, and he's grown now, but he was young. He said, man, the Chinese kid is so smart. And I said, man, Justin, I understand where you're coming from. I got it. And I said, I think he was in the sixth grade at the time. Justin is 22 now. I said, Justin, I hear what you're saying. I get it. And I'm not here to debate with you. But one thing that you may not realize is that those Chinese parents, is what he called them, sometimes they buy the textbook and they do the work at home. And so when they come back to class, hand raise, hand raise, hand raise, hand raise, hand raise. And you study, what'd you say?
They get the cheat code.
They get the cheat code. And I had to talk to him in sixth grade that it's not that anybody's smarter than you. I don't care if they're white, Chinese, short or tall. Is that they may have had a little bit more coaxing, a little bit more support.
That's all it is. It's preparation. It's just like when I was telling my students at one point, well, several different groups of students I've told this to, that one of the reasons that we do poorly in mathematics in classrooms is because it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, and we're not that good at mathematics because of who we're comparing ourselves to. And a lot of times, we sit in classrooms, we compare ourselves to, and I use my son as an example, right? I can use my daughter as an example too, right? But I use Nasim. Nasim is 16. He's in 11th grade. He's studying calculus right now. He's in a class all seniors, all 12th graders. He's the only junior in there, right?
Wow.
But the thing is, if somebody sits in a class with him, and like let's say it's an 11th grader, let's say he goes to another math class and he's sitting there with all 11th graders, and somebody look at him and it's like, this brother is like, he's taking the work down, he's getting it done quickly, he's accurate and whatnot. So if you don't have that, if you as a student don't have that strong math background, you compare yourself to Nasim, that's going to be a problem. But the thing is, you don't know Nasim's background. Nasim had the cheat code. Nasim's cheat code was his father was a math teacher. And when he was 6 years old, his father knew that the Philadelphia public school system was not training him in order to be, as the late Dr. John Henry Clark said, what the purpose of education is supposed to be for us is to train Black children to be responsible handlers of power. Oh, wow. Nasim's father knew that that's not what they were doing, but yet Nasim's father knew that that's what his son needed. So that's why when Nasim was 6 years old, I'm like, I'm about to show you how to solve simple equations. I'm going to show you how to do one-step equations. And then we're going to do two-step equations. And then we're going to do multi-step equations with, parentheses when you got to use the distributive property. And then we're going to do the equations where you got variables on both sides of the equal sign. We're going to get all that. And he's doing this at a young age. Now, that does not match up with his school curriculum at all. But that's right. Here, I had the audacity to believe that I should be my son's primary educator. So if you sit in a classroom with him and you as a student, you don't have that background, you can't compare yourself to him. That's right. He's not a valid comparison because, again, Nasim had the cheat code. So a lot of us, we already are affected by all this negative propaganda about how math is irrelevant, how we can't do math, how math is too difficult, it's hard, you got to be born with a math gene in order to excel in mathematics. We're already dealing with all that. We've already been bombarded with that constantly all our life, right? Right. And then you're in class with somebody that's getting it faster than you are. And then you're like, and then you try to do a problem. It's another thing. You try to do a problem and you get it wrong. And then you think, oh, see, not realizing that you're supposed to get it wrong.
You're supposed to get it wrong. It's no other way.
Yeah, you're gonna get it wrong. Like that. Just because you get it wrong, like that doesn't mean that it's unattainable.
I tell you something about math problems and getting math problems wrong. And this will help me understand mathematics. I went up to college algebra 2. I was fearful of going higher. I heard this term, differential equations. I said, I don't know what the heck is that about, but I'm going the opposite direction. And I stopped my math journey. And so one of the things that helped me with math was getting a problem wrong. And I would work on it the second time, the third time. And every time I worked on it, I get another step right, and then the rest of it would be wrong. And then I go back and start from the top. And then after about 10, 15 times of working on a problem, I would have gotten that problem correct, and the rest of the chapter was a breeze. Mm-hmm. Like, wow. If I had to just stop or went and took a break or did something and just gave up, I wouldn't have gained the skill necessary on that one problem. Because that may have been an anchor problem that I was working on to set me up for the rest of the chapter or for the next 2 or 3 chapters. So I hear what you're saying about getting a math problem wrong, man. That's powerful. That's a powerful explanation that you just made.
You got to get it wrong, and you got to be comfortable with getting it wrong. You got to be comfortable with, doing it bad before you can do it good.
That's right.
You got to be comfortable with that. And a lot of people, again, it's because of all the negative propaganda, around mathematics for our people. And it really, I'm gonna speak some more about a lot of these memes that float around the internet. And what I realized is that it's actually like if I wasn't a person that was like African centered and focused on putting the community first and the well-being of the collective before myself, then I probably wouldn't even say nothing. I probably would just sit back and just allow myself to benefit from those memes and from that propaganda, because what those memes do is it makes people feel comfortable in their mathematical illiteracy and their mathematical incompetency. It makes people feel comfortable in it. And once you make people feel comfortable in their deficiency, then they have less of an incentive to overcome the deficiency and to develop it. So what does that mean from an economic standpoint? It means that if you condition and socialize all these millions of people, hundreds of people, thousands of people, that math is hard, math is irrelevant, math is not for you, then they're going to believe that. So then the people who do excel in mathematics, what does that mean for us? That means that we're always going to be special.
You're elitist. You can be trained to believe that you're elitist over those other people. That's interesting.
We're going to be, but and we have the skill set. So it's like, well, we can do something that most people aren't trying to do what we know how to do.
Okay.
So what those memes and everything really do is it really helps to maintain the status quo. And actually not even maintain the status quo, but to kind of increase and exponentially enhance the current status quo, because it makes more and more people feel like, okay, if more people feel like math is irrelevant, more people feel like math is too hard, more people feel like they can't do math, more people feel like we should take math classes out of the school system and replace it with other personal finance, where you're still going to need math to do the personal finance content anyway. So it's not an either or situation. It's a both and situation. And it's really about application of things that are relevant, like personal finance, using Algebra 2, using Algebra 1, right? Then the people that are like, I know math, I excel in math. These people in the economic system become more valuable because we're the ones that can do it. Just like everybody can't drop a transmission out of a car and replace it with a new one. That's right. So a lot of times
gonna help you with that. So you're right.
So again, this is why with Hystematics, we try to have conversations about political education, economic education, because when a lot of people, out of frustration, they make claims and they say things like, well, why don't they teach this in school? Why don't they teach that in school? Well, that's a good question. But if we understand America and how Western society is set up, we understand capitalism. Well, I should say more specifically, monopoly capitalism, how all of that is set up. You know why you can't teach everybody that? Because then if everybody knew how to cut hair, and you teaching young people how to be barbers, teaching everybody how to cut hair, then how barbers gonna make money?
Right.
How they would never be able to be barbers that'll say, you know, I'll come to your house and cut your hair, or come to the shop, and they won't be able to charge $50 to give you a haircut. They won't be able to do that because anybody can do it. They can go anywhere and get that. Like, what makes you special? Why should I pay you $50? It's supply and demand. It's a simple supply and demand, which is another formula. It's another mathematical concept. So again, back to my other point that I was making, when people talk about, you know, when am I going to use this stuff? Why do I need to know this? It's so you can think like that and understand how the world works. Because the people that are controlling the world, the people that make the decisions that dictate how the world will go, how the economic systems will function, and how all these, you know, these political systems function. These guys are, you know, they use mathematical formulas to manipulate things and make these things happen. They're creating algorithms. This is all math. It's all math, all of it. So when we shy away from it and we say, oh, well, I never use y equals mx plus b. I never use the quadratic formula. I never use a squared plus b squared equals c squared. It's not even really about the specific formula. It's about having the ability to use the formula, because that skill is transferable. Because knowing how to say, okay, I read this word problem, and
you said word problems. Go ahead, bud.
I read this word problem, and now I know how to take the information from this word problem. First of all, I know how to interpret the word problem.
Yeah.
Because I know how to read. And that's another thing, too. A lot of times there are reading comprehension deficits that are masquerading as math deficits. They're not really math deficits. Reading and math goes hand in hand. They work in tandem. But a lot of times you sit in a math class, teacher gives you a word problem, you can't really read it effectively, but you're like, oh, but I'm in a math class, so that means I'm not good at math. Like, nah, bro, you can't read. You can't read, homeboy. That's what it is. That's what it really is.
And
that's a serious conversation that we got to start having more about, how the lack of reading ability feeds right into a lack of math ability. Because before you can do the math problem, you got to know how to read the math problem. You got to know how to read it. But back to the formulas that people claim that they never use. In order to do a word problem, you got to read it, read the problem, interpret the problem, know how to take the information, plug it into the formula in the right way, know why it works, understand why it works, know how to do the calculations, and come up with the answer and get an answer that makes sense. And that's a transferable skill. That's a life skill. So it's not really about the formula. It's not about the so-called Pythagorean theorem. I say so-called because Pythagoras was Greek and he studied in ancient Kemet from our ancestors, but the Europeans have a better marketing system. So they're able to, you know, manipulate the information and create textbooks and name it, you know. I'm not mad at them. Which is, again, another reason why I've developed all this math, is because we can create our own systems of education and systems of knowledge, which actually, you know, we already have, but we can market and promote our own learning systems, right? Every group of people, like the brother mentioned, Singapore math, just the fact of people in Singapore calling a mathematical curriculum, naming it after that nation in that country. That's an exercise in nationalism. That's nationalism.
That's
and a lot of my influence in terms of what I'm doing now comes from me studying people like Malcolm X, who was talking about in the Ballad of the Bullet, he talked about evangelizing Black nationalism. People like Kwame Ture talking about Black nationalism in the 60s, and him and Willie Mukasa Ricks in 1966 saying Black power for the first time and making it popular, right? This is about nationalism, right? We can create our own systems of learning and promote our own systems of learning that our ancestors have always had, but that have kind of just got swept under the rug because some of us have decided, you know, a lot of times not necessarily through any fault, you know, of anybody, but, you know, things happen. We decided to just accept a squared plus b squared equals c squared. We'll call that the Pythagorean theorem. It's like, okay, we'll call it that. But we don't have to call it that. We can call it whatever we want to call it. Just like they decided to call it.
You can call it whatever you want to call it.
They knew good and well. They know Pythagoras studied in ancient Kemet. They know that, but they decided that, okay, I don't care about naming it after who he studied it from, who he learned it from, we're still going to name it after him because we're going to promote our own culture. And that's what they decided to do. And we should do the same thing. You know, that we can do the same thing. So that this is really, it's also an exercise in a nationalism of our own, and using STEM. And that's another connection to hystematics, because one of the reasons, speaking of Kwame Ture, one of the reasons that I've developed hystematics is because where we combine history and mathematics, political science, cultural studies and mathematics, is because, like Kwame Ture said back in the 60s, at the Free Huey rally in his speech, he said, every Negro is a potential black man. And we got a lot of brilliant black men that are brilliant, PhDs in mathematics, computer science, physics, organic chemistry, all these different, STEM fields. And STEM's a big buzzword right now. Everybody throws STEM around. I guess, that's the way to get grant money. Right. I'm not cool. It is what it is, right? Right. But a lot of the people that are brilliant in these fields and in these areas, they become weaponized against our community because they take all that brilliance and that intelligence and they use it to help maintain white supremacy theory, to maintain Western hegemony. You might have a PhD in physics and you end up going to work in a lab where you develop technology that's going to be used in bombs that's going to be dropped on African countries. The United States military on African countries. And the thing is, you might not care about that. You might not care about that end result. But if you have a political grounding while you're studying physics, while you're doing PhD level work in physics, then you're like, wait, hold up. I'm not going to allow y'all to use my talent and my ability for that. Because I realize that that's something that really needs to happen, because there's so many of us that are brilliant. I can't take that away from them. They're brilliant. They're brilliant. So I'm not going to try to, disrespect them by calling them dumb, because that would be disingenuous on my part. They're not dumb. They're highly intelligent.
Yeah, they're not.
They lack a certain political orientation. Now, granted, if you understand these things and then you just decide, well, shit, I don't give a fuck about Africa, whatever. Them ain't my peoples. Like, you know what I mean? You use my peoples. I'm American. Like, okay, then that's your choice too. But I wager that it's a lot of people that aren't considering geopolitics. They're not considering the cultural relevance of being able to say, you know what, I'm not gonna use my talent and my ability to do things that are anti-African or that might hurt the Black community as a collective, first and foremost. Mm-hmm. So that's another reason that hystematics is relevant. But yeah, I think if you're able to, I like to come back and talk specifically about
for sure. For sure.
More to it.
Because you do have that tab on your website, and there's a video link. We tend not play videos on the network because there may be copyright strike issues. So just to remove that issue that can occur, we just don't play videos. But I did show it in the background regarding hystematics. So yeah, that was a point that I did want to focus on for a future broadcast for sure. And, I got one last question with you. So, like you're working with Cheney. I don't know if you mentioned this on the show when Brother Hunter Blue was here, but you work with YMCA, or you work with the organization that works with the YMCA. You have an interest in developing the Black community with regards to focusing on math. How do you plan to develop your outreach for all this math? If you can say that, is it through walking down the street with a sign? Is it through writing books? I know you got the YouTube channel. What methods that are important to you, or that you foresee yourself employing to develop all this math, so that you can, have a more expanded reach to the population at large?
So I'm glad you asked that question. So several things. Using social media more effectively and more efficiently is one thing. Posting content on a more consistent basis, going on more programs such as this one, and just talking to people about it, letting people know that it's available. Because there are a lot of people that don't know that it's available, or don't know that it exists. And if they knew it exists, they would use it, they would utilize it. And I can tell just from the response I get when certain people find out about it.
Right.
There are also a lot of people that don't know that they need it, right? Like as a product, and it's free. It's on YouTube, right? So it's a free product, but people don't really know that they need it, because I think a lot of people are like, as long as my child is passing math, as long as they're not failing math, they're okay. But it's very possible, and people don't really know. Well, people either they might know and then might not care that much, but it's very possible to pass a math class and not learn math. Because a lot of it becomes data entry. A lot of it becomes, if you turn in the assignments, you get a passing grade. And I'm not. That's right. I'm not. That's self-directed criticism. I'm just being transparent. I mean, as teachers, that happens. As teachers, that happens. I mean, you have a syllabus, and in your syllabus, different assignments have a certain weight. So there are ways that mathematically you can fail to be proficient in your knowledge of mathematics and still get a passing grade in the class.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That is right. That's right. Yeah, you're right about that, man. You can still pass the class, man, and move on with your life.
And I think that becomes part of the problem, is that people want to pass the class instead of learning. Because if you learn, then passing will be a byproduct. As a matter of fact, you'll exceed passing. You'll get past the bare minimum. You'll excel in it. But again, the mindset, and that's again something else I'm trying to do. I'm trying to change the relationship that the Black community has with math in general. The young people out here, their parents want to avoid it. So then that kind of gets passed on to the child. The child wants to avoid it. It's like, damn, I got to go to this class. I hate this class. So I try anything I could do to not go to math class. I got to get out of it, and then they try to avoid it. So I want to change the relationship and let people know, like, yo, it's not that hard. There's certain steps and certain processes, and for every single type of problem, and and then it becomes an issue of practice. You gotta get your reps in.
Right.
You gotta practice, just like with sports. I know athletes can understand it. Athletes is easy, like play basketball, football, baseball, whatever sport. Whatever sport it is, like you gotta put the time in. And a lot of times you're doing the same thing over and over again, and you're stressing the fundamentals. Like you gotta memorize your multiplication table. Like those things.
Oh man,
those things are very significant. Just knowing your multiplication facts from 1 times 1 up to 12 times 12. Those fundamental things. Knowing how to add and subtract, multiply and divide fractions. Those things that seem insignificant, but doing a lot of problems. Like I would advise and recommend to parents, if you got a child that's early, like maybe 3rd grade, 4th grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade, and they're learning how to do arithmetic with fractions, have them do 10 problems every day. 10 problems every day. Add fractions every day. Subtract 10 fractions every day. Multiply some fractions. Divide some fractions. It's about repetition. It's about repetition. That's what it is. Because you know why? I was tutoring on Saturday. I got a partnership with a local private school through the African American Alumni Association. So I was tutoring on Saturday, and it was a brother was at the board doing a problem I gave him, and he was using a quadratic formula to solve a quadratic equation. I know that sounds difficult, but it's really not that difficult. The concept is not that hard. He got caught up with when he had to add -4 plus 9/16. -4 plus 9/16. That's elementary school math typically. I mean, I shouldn't call it elementary school math, because that's discouraging, and that could be anti-intellectual, because again, our ego creeps up, if you tell a 30-year-old man, yo, this is elementary school math, and if that 30-year-old man or woman, 30-year-old man or woman, they're like, damn, I can't do this. So if I can't do elementary school math, then I'm gonna feel dumb. I can't be exposed. So therefore, I'm not even gonna try. So I'm gonna stay away from this because I can't expose my weakness. Grown men and women do the same thing. So those labels become discouraging. Those labels become discouraging. It's like the whole concept, the whole TV show. Are you smarter than a fifth grader? Well, what is a fifth grader supposed to know? So you mean to tell me if a fifth grader knows a fact about something and you're a 40-year-old woman or 40-year-old man and you didn't know it, like what does that mean? Like what does that mean? Does that mean that there's something wrong with you? No, you might just not know that thing. But when we put these labels on knowledge, and we try to maintain these certain types of hierarchies, it's discouraging. It causes people to not even want to be bothered. That's right. So we got to get out of that. We got to get out of that. I should say that's the type adding and subtracting and arithmetic with fractions is something that's typically taught in the elementary school area, but you got to have a lot of practice with that so that could be second nature. So by the time you get to high school and you're in 9th grade or 10th grade and you got to use the quadratic formula, and you might use the quadratic formula in 8th grade or something if you're lucky.
I think we picked it up in the 7th or 8th grade when I'm from Mississippi. Oh yeah, earlier you said not Philadelphia, Mississippi, even Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We do have a Philadelphia, Mississippi, and this is where the Native American have power over the casino industry. So that's powerful to say that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know about it from the not to derail the conversation, but the civil rights workers, the 3 civil rights workers.
Oh man, okay, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's what I'm saying. Like so that right there is hystematics. So we're having a math conversation right now, but it's very much relevant to Schwerner and I forget the other two.
Goodman.
Goodman. Yeah, it's very relevant to that, and we can create math.
That's a powerful thing you just said right there because and look, I'll say this, man. It was a story that was going around in my town that there was a tool, a piece of machinery, a tractor or something that was involved in that case. That tractor, I was in Mississippi in 2016 or so. You there?
Yeah.
Okay, your screen. Okay. That tractor that was supposedly involved in that case was still in the same spot in my hometown. Because I live from Starkville. It was something going on with the tractor, but I was asking somebody, I said, man, the tractor been there since I was a kid or some type of equipment. And they were like, yeah, it was involved. It was like a subject of the investigation from those 3 guys. So that was powerful you say that, man. I get what you're saying about hystematics now. Because you're talking about mathematics and you get into you just get into talking about mathematics and trying to get somebody to understand, and then a subject of historical significance comes up, and it may seem like it's out of the blue, but it's not. It's relevant to what. It's relevant. That's all I can say because that's a new topic for me that you're talking about, and I'm stumbling over words, but I kind of get it, but I don't. And so for you to be teaching that to the people like myself, I consider myself an intelligent person, but I know absolutely nothing about the study of hystematics, in as it is, and if it's packaged up, I'm gonna be a neophyte to the core on that. So I appreciate you on that one. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So but yeah, man, I want to say we definitely gonna hit you back on because I'm gonna have to be talking to you some more about this hystematics, so I'll be able to develop some some good questions with you for you to answer, and just so I'll be comfortable in our conversation and moving forward. And at some point, I'm gonna get some better technology going on. This has been this issue with the stream has been usually just an audio issue was in and out. The video will slow down, but this actually it just completely shut off today, which is weird. But We worked it out. I really want to thank Mr. Hunter Blue for coming in.
Yeah.
Question in the chat. He took over the stream. I'm not gonna say that out loud. He took over the stream. But that's his job. That's his job, man. Mr. Hunter Blue, the man. He has that morning show, man. He comes in. I sometimes I get up, I watch it. While I'm taking care of things before I head out for the day. The brothers always laying down positive news, get people's days started. And I really thank him for stepping up today and coming in. I ain't gonna say stepping up; it looked like he was down or something. For stepping in and taking over the stream. And he gonna chastise me tomorrow. I'll watch. I'll tell y'all about it next week. So, hey man, I want to thank you, man. Hey, I like you, man. And I'm saying that because Donnie said it too. Donnie said I like you, and Donnie. I wanted to bring him on because Donnie talked to you in his show when he interviewed you, and I was like, wow, you all had like a real good banter going on. I was like, you know what, you're the type of person that's a real good guest because you're able to carry the conversation but not get off track and it still be relevant to the question at hand. And it's good information. It's actually it's entertaining what you're talking about. Not entertaining like I want to laugh or anything, but it's probably edutainment. And so it's something that you can go back and research. Like hit Wikipedia or something. Like, man, I feel like getting smart today.
I appreciate that. It's funny you bring up edutainment. Well, I keep mentioning Kwame Ture. Kwame Ture is one of my intellectual heroes, one of my favorite African revolutionaries. Born in Trinidad, and it was on the Boogie Down Productions Edutainment album that came out in 1990 when I first got introduced to Kwame Ture. He was on a series of interludes. KRS-One had him on a bunch of interludes. I got introduced to his voice as a youngin. I didn't start really studying him till I was much older. Yeah, when I was a youngin, listening to hip hop music, I was like, who is this guy? Like, he's talking over these beats and whatnot and these interludes. And making jokes, and he was like lecturing, but he was like making jokes, but it was about Africa and it was about African consciousness and everything. And I thought it was real cool. And then when I ended up studying him many years later, I became very, very enamored, with his work and with his his promotion of Pan-Africanism. And I was so impressed with the brother that I ended up naming my baby, my son, who will be 3 next month, Kwame. Named him after him.
Okay, I got you. Okay, wow. Okay. That's powerful. You got a story behind you. You have a whole story behind giving your youngest child. At least you told us that story. I can't say about I believe you said you had 3.
3, yeah.
Yeah, you gave your story, and that's pretty powerful for the stream. I thank you for offering that gift to the stream, man. You didn't have to do that, but you did, and I appreciate it. He might give me some views out of here, even though it's at the end. But appreciate it. But I'm not gonna. I know I had about 15, 20 minutes of downtime, maybe. I appreciate you, man. We definitely gonna have you back on here to discuss systematics in detail. And until next time, next Monday, April 25th, God willing, we're still here. And we will be back with another exciting guest on the Robaer Report, where our mission is to talk to individuals and their contribution to society and to society's development. Have a great week. Take care. Peace, you all.
Peace.